Om Kujantam Rama Rameti Maduram Maduraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakyam Vande Valmiki Kokilam. This is the message with which we bow ourselves in worship of Valmiki Maharishi. Valmiki Maharishi is picturized as a koel that is sitting on the branch of a tree and making beautiful melody by singing Rama, Rama, Rama. We are all aware of what Shiv Bhagavan told Parvati at the end of Vishnu Sahasranamam. Rama 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 Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranamadattullyam Ramanama Varanane. Amongst all the 1,000 words of Bhagavan Vishnu, the word Rama is very, very special. And the interesting thing is, many of us must have heard this very popular sloka. When we were kids, we all were taught Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunataya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. So, the different people who are looking towards Rama, whether it is the rishis, whether it is the people, whether it is Sita, they are all looking to Rama with different perspectives and they are all worshipping Rama. We have been looking at the different aspects of Rama through the eyes of his opponents for the last 2 weeks. And the upcoming week we are going to look at how Rama saw these opponents. So in between we are going to have a small detour and look at how everybody can and must do some sort of Rama Kainkarya. What is the focus one must take? And to do this, we are looking at the different Ramayana characters and see how the different Ramayana characters have looked at Rama himself and Rama Kainkarya. And this is of very important consequence to us because these different characters in Ramayana are giving us different viewpoints, different angles, different thought processes, just like we all are approaching Bhagavan in different aspects. Even Maricha, who was his opponent, he could understand Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha, that if you took all Dharma in the universe and you made a form, it is none other than Rama. So Rama set very high standards for himself. When Ravana sent spies in the form of Shuka and Charana, they went and came back with the report that even when Rama fights in the battlefield, he is just the embodiment of Dharma. So even the worst enemy could not stop appreciating what Rama was. So when Rama was obviously setting such high standards, it obviously rubs on the other people, just like rising tide raises all ships. We all tend to get uplifted. But that can happen to the Ramayana characters. They were all long time back. So what is it big deal now? We are living in 21st century. How is that Ramayana going to help us? And this is the type of mindset that unfortunately prevents us from understanding that Ramayana is eternal. The messages of Ramayana is applicable to any age, any time. So let us go today to look at how to do Rama Kainkarya. What is Kainkarya? To do some work for Rama. But we are not in Rama's times. So we have to keep in the backdrop that we are talking about the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma. Rama is the Paramatma and we are the Jivatma. So let us focus on each character. We will take a handful of them and we will study them and focus on applying in our daily lives. What it actually meant and what it actually means now. So we will quickly go into each character, see what role or what position they played, and quickly jump back to our personal lives. So it's going to be interesting. So I have posted a link on the top for folks who are interested in looking at the article at their leisure, because I'm not reading the article. This is not that kind of focus, but the article may have certain extra pointers or it may be a good refresher. Either way, keeping that is handy. So first let us start with Sita. Now, we have to look at three different women, how all three women with identical situations, they responded to the situation differently. The first one we are going to look at is Sita. Now, the second one whom we are not going to look like is Urmila, who is the wife of Lakshmana. Now, Lakshmana went and told, you stay here, take care of my parents and you stay in the palace. I will go and do seva to my brother. Done. Husband told, wife did. Now, again, if a feminist or a feminazi is here, it is kind of like, what kind of patriarchal society is this? He dictates and she listens. But we have to understand, we are talking about a more civilized time where there were much subtler dharmic ideas in the society. Unlike today, where relationships are more like a battle. There is a constant power struggle, there is deception and all the other things that come into the picture of today. So Urmila is one example. She just followed whatever her husband said. But unlike her, Sita is challenging Rama. She says, hey, it's not just my desire to come with you, right? It's my responsibility, it's my dharma. Whichever path you go, my path is with you. My dharma is to be with you. So whether you look at Rama as Bhagavan or whether you look at Rama as a husband, doesn't matter. Sita says, I am inseparable from you. And the funny thing is, Rama's idea was a poor lady, she is why to trouble her. But Sita is using the same logic to 180 degrees, and she says, like, what kind of logic is this? You are capable of defending me anywhere, right? Why are you even talking about it? So, how does it matter for us? Now, in our life, we have to understand that Dharma is very, very subtle. So, it is definitely not understood in completeness. And the problem is, we want to follow this Dharma in our life. We also want to face the struggles to be part of this Rama's journey. But what happens is we tend to get distracted with the creature comforts and we don't want to focus on Dharma. Now, when we say Dharma, Dharma is not something different other than moksha. In this world, what you see as Dharma is going to be moksha in the other world. So, it is like an entrance. So, you enter through a door and you come to the other side. So, you enter through the door of Dharma, you come to the other side of the room or other side of the wall or fort or whatever, right? So, Dharma is the door to moksha. The second practical implication for us is both husband and wife must be not only on the same page, but on the same page, deeply rooted in Dharma, proactively encouraging that dharmic ecosystem. And the life has to be driven not merely based on desires, but one rooted in Dharma. So that's the message we can take from Sita. Now, next character we are going to look at is Lakshmana. Now, we all know Lakshmana is lifelong shadow of Rama, and all he derived his joy was to do simple things. He was there in, he was the one who built the Parnasala. He was the one who was protecting day and night. He was the one who fetched the wood. He was the one who fetched the flowers or fruits or vegetables or whatever. And he was the one who made sure that Rama and Sita were having a nice life. And he translated all his hard work to ensure that. Now, the thing is that we see that even Rama is trying to discourage him. Hey, why don't come with me? Lakshmana said, what are you talking? Then when they meet on the banks of the river where Guha was there, again Rama says, why don't you go back to Ayodhya? Lakshmana is undeterred. He says nothing doing. He is stubborn in one thing. He wants to do Rama Kainkarya, period. Even if Rama wants to throw him out, he will fight with Rama to stay there. So it is an interesting aspect that we can learn from him, that we have to be steadfast, focused, committed to do the hard work if we want to uphold Dharma in our own life, if we want to uphold Dharma through our life, and if we want to uphold Dharma in the society. So, that path was not easy. The path of Lakshmana was probably more arduous than we think or than what we give credit to. We see TV Ramayana and we say, okay, they are all just walking. But it was Lakshmana who did most of the grind. In fact, the toughest part for Lakshmana is at one point when Rama figures out from Jatayu that Sita has been kidnapped, he says, I am going to burn this entire universe. But for Lakshmana, who challenged Rama, and we think that Lakshmana is very quiet, he doesn't talk back and whatever. You have to read Valmiki Ramayana to see how influential he was at the most crucial junctures. So he says, that is for punishing one person, you are going to punish the entire universe. So he is the one who saves the world from Rama's fury. And then on top of that, Sita accuses him falsely on top of everything. So Lakshmana was not only harassed by Rama in that sense, but also by Sita. And then add to that, the time from when Sita was lost till the time they could get the news back from Hanuman, the one that was non-stop trying to be consoling Rama, that job was for Lakshmana. And on the battlefield, Lakshmana was brought down twice by Indrajit, of course Rama also, and then Lakshmana goes and kills Indrajit in the final encounter, but he is also brought down by Ravana. So standing beside Rama or Dharma will be very demanding. It is going to extract a big toll. So we think the path of Dharma or the path of doing our chores aligned with that of Rama or Dharma is going to be easy, that nothing can be far from that. Take example of Harishchandra. How difficult he was put to all sorts of tests. So, if you look at the Kathopanishad, where Yama is telling Nachiketas, the path of Dharma is very, very, very difficult. Kshurasya dara nishita duratyaya durgam pataste kavayo vadanti. Kshurasya dara. It's like walking on razor edge. Very difficult. And that's what the learned people say, according to Yama. Yama is not even quoting himself. He is saying that's what learned people say. Kavayo vadanti. So, commitment to Dharma can push us to our limits. It can demand big sacrifices, but this is the flip side. You may be struggling in Dharma yourself, but if you raise yourself in that sadhana, you may be the person who could benefit other persons. So imagine there is a mango seed that I have put. Last 4 or 5 years, goat is eating, cow is eating, this is eating, that is eating. With great difficulty, with 5, 6 years or 8 years, now it's a nice big tree. Now, everybody is benefited from that mango plant. Everybody can get mangoes, nice juicy mangoes. So, we may be doing all this sadhana to raise ourselves, struggle, fail, whatever. But people around us will be benefited. So, Bhagavan looks at this kind of situation and he wants to highlight that particular case and say, look at this child of mine. No matter what struggle they went through, They stood on the side of Dharma. And that is how Bhagavan puts the spotlight on us, uses our case to influence other people. But if we are not a good example, well, we are one amongst the million, right? Everybody is in the same boat. So there is no point in putting the spotlight. So sometimes we may be going through a lot more struggles the minute we align ourselves towards the path of Rama, to the path of Dharma. And it must not be forgotten that all this is a part of purgation, the part of cleansing, the path of evolution. Next, let's look at Kausalya, mother of Rama. She wanted to go to the forest, but Rama tells nice logic. He tells, look, your husband, that is my father Dasaratha, is being surrounded and checkmated by this Kaikeyi. Now is the time when maximum amount of your presence is required. But if you say that I want to be with my son and desert your husband, that's not nice. You have to do your dharma. So Rama puts the right thought process. Now she wants to do Rama Kainkarya through her desire. But she is not doing her swadharma. So the important thing to understand is that what is my role? Can I do something which is not mine? So your Rama Kainkarya, your alignment to your swadharma is crucial. Otherwise you will not be evolving in that path. So how do we do that? First we need to know what is dharma. Then only we can understand swadharma. So for that we need to turn towards the advice of scriptures or satsanga, and that's where we can get that information. And that's exactly what Rama did for Kausalya. Next let's look at Bharata and Shatrugna. Now we will put Shatrugna as a special case because Shatrugna is just like an extension of Bharata, just like Lakshmana was that to Rama. So Bharata wanted to do Rama Kainkarya. He said, all this bad name is because my mother schemed and I got this throne. I don't want this. So he takes the entire Ayodhya, he builds a road to take the entire Ayodhya, and he goes there and he tries to win Rama through arguments. But every brilliant argument he comes up with, Rama breaks it. So finally, he surrenders to Rama's words. And he says, I will be the caretaker of Ayodhya, but I will not enter Ayodhya. So he stays in Nandigram only. Then he says one thing, please give me your Paduka, and I will treat that Paduka as the king. So theoretically speaking, Rama literally never left Ayodhya. And that is why when he came back, he could take back the kingdom without any special replacement or any ceremony or something like that. He was a proxy Raja for all 14 years. That was ensured by Bharata. Now Shatrugna said, you know what, who is the Shatru he is fighting? Shatrugna is fighting the Shatru that he wants to directly go and do seva to Rama. Instead, he wants to control his mind and focus on Bhagavata seva. So instead of serving Bhagavan directly, you serve the Bhagavata, which is more difficult. Why? We know Bhagavan is great and all those things, but Bhagavata is just like you and me. He is also eating, taking bath. He is also going to the what is it like eating, leading a normal life. So there is nothing different or difficult. So to humble the mind to serve the Bhagavata is more difficult than to serve Bhagavan himself, because we understand Bhagavan is Sarvavyapi, Bhagavan has got all the Kalyana Gunas, Bhagavan is all powerful. Our lowly Bhagavata is not. And that is why Shatrughna has a very special place in the hearts of Bhagavatas, because he sets the standard to a different level. Now we can ask the question, in the dharmic path, it's not that easy. And Bharata wants to serve Rama, but Rama says no. So we have to understand that what is my role in that big scheme of things. See, if you want to be the Prime Minister, how many people can be Prime Minister? Only one. So if everybody wants to be Prime Minister, then who is going to be the normal person? Who is going to be the Chief Minister? Who is going to be the Finance Minister? So knowing one's place in the bigger scheme of Dharma is very important. And also knowing one's role. Rama himself said, Bharata, you can't join me in the forest, nor will I come back to Ayodhya. Both requests of Bharata shot down. Bharata is not willing to give up. He says, okay, just like how you are in this Kashaya Vastra, just like you are having Jata, Mudi, I will also have a Jata. I will also eat the same way, the same roots and fruits what you are eating in the forest. Just like you don't enter the city, I will not enter the city. I will keep up your word that I will take care of the city for you, but at the same time you can't impose the standards and say that you go and live a princely life. So even if we are having a certain standard, we can raise that standard of our commitment to Dharma or our commitment to Rama. So it is very important to understand that. Then we come to Guha, a simple tribal guy, didn't have any culture, but he is so committed to Rama through his dedication. Rama stayed with him only one day, but Rama sees his heart, he sees his simplicity, he sees his loyalty. He says, you are my brother. Can you imagine that? It's like in T20 match. One guy comes 1 over or maybe 2 overs when these people are struggling. Suddenly he comes and hammers 4, 5 sixes, 3, 4 fours, and he disturbs the entire bowling rhythm of the opponent party, opposite party. So Guha is doing the same thing. He does a cameo for us. And he highlights the importance that even though we may be a small cog in the wheel of society, every cog matters. So depends on how much we are raising our standard. That's the matter. I don't know if we already discussed about Jatayu in a separate lecture or not. If not, we will do that in the English, but we did in Tamil. So Jatayu is a very special character. what Jadayu stands for is not to let our shortcomings stop us from discharging our duties, from our commitment to Dharma, from our commitment to Rama Kainkarya. When Ravana was spotted by him trying to kidnap Sita, he challenges him. The very first words he says is, Ravana, you are way too younger for me, way too stronger for me, but don't think that you are going to go away without a fight. And not only that, after giving Ravana a very, very stiff fight, way out of his league, because what happens when you are committed to Dharma, you get that extra strength. So, Ravana chops him into pieces, but he holds his breath long enough to convey Rama of the kidnapping. Rama is so personally moved by this that he is doing the funeral rites for a bird as if it was his father. So, what is the most important takeaway for us? If we are to be committed in the path of Rama Kainkarya, don't worry about what are the consequences following Dharma. The fact that you can be committed to Dharma itself is its own reward. So, we cannot estimate the value of our commitment to Dharma. Let's say, for example, there is a guy who is in his 20s, 30s, 40s, and they try to up the game and they are committed to following Dharma. Can you put a price tag on their impact? How many generations they will be impacting in the future? Their own family? Because they raised the standard. Now, assuming that nobody did, still, for your own evolution, spiritual evolution, it is of vital consequence. Secondly, we must focus on our strengths, we must focus on our duties, we must focus on our kartavya rather than focusing too much on our limitations. Now, there are two interesting characters we saw last week. One was Virada, the other one was Kavanda. These two people were fallen Gandharvas and they were finally killed by Rama. Virada incident happened as soon as Rama enters the Aranya when he catches hold of Sita. And Kavanda episode happens after Sita was kidnapped by Ravana, and Kavanda tells once he gets the normal form after Rama is killing him that he should go and meet Sugriva and be his friends, and he should go to Sabari who can give the last directions. So what happens is there is an adharmic disorientation that we all have, just like Kavanda. In the normal state, Kavanda could not give directions to Rama. He says, Rama, till I give up my tamasic body, I will not be able to help you. Now, Kavanda is able to help and do Rama Kainkarya only because that tamas came in contact with sattva. So, same way when we come to satsanga, when we come to study Itihasa Puranas or Upanishads or whatever, we are in a position to get rid of that adharmic disorientation we all have and stay focused to our real potential, that we are Atman. So, that is the lesson we can take from Kabandha and also Virada. Because Virada is the one who points Rama to go towards the ashrama of Sarabanga. Now, the other thing is, we must elevate our standards if we want to approach and do our dharma. If we don't elevate our standards, we are not qualified to do that dharma. That is exactly what we learned from Kabandha's incident. Let's take a few more examples. We are just walking through from the beginning, so we are just having a few characters in Ramayana which we are looking to how they did Rama Kainkarya and what lessons we can take and apply in our lives if we want to be evolving ourselves in Rama Kainkarya or if we want to do our dharma. Now, Sabari is living in a forest, middle of nowhere. Her guru said, hey, one day you will see that Parabrahmam in human form called Rama. Stay here. But every day she had the same commitment, same enthusiasm. Hey, today Rama is going to come. Okay. If Rama is going to come, I need to have some fresh food so that he can rest and he can go. Oh, today he didn't come. Okay. Hey, it's going to be tomorrow. He is definitely going to come. Tomorrow comes. Oh, he didn't come today. No problem. Tomorrow is going to come. Imagine that same enthusiasm she is holding for multiple decades. What does that tell you? At least it tells me that if we are so committed to our Guru Bhakti and if we stay directed towards Rama, we will get an opportunity of not only that Rama Kainkarya, but we will also be able to do some seva for Rama, because she is the one who gives directions to approach Sugriva, because Sugriva is not that easily reachable. So, how do we get this kind of Guru Bhakti? Again, we need to listen to the stories of great Mahatmas, Acharyas, study scriptures, read about our avatars, and stay focused with our sincere actions. Now, if we are so focused on our actions, karma, and dedicate all the karma phala to Bhagavan, those are the only two variables you and I have in our control. So, Bhagavan is going to be forced. You are literally forcing Bhagavan to come and bless you, because you are taking control of the only two variables that are in play. Next example we are going to look at is that of Hanuman. Now, Hanuman is the superstar. He is the one who does all the superhuman feats. He is the one who shows a lot of his actual skills, intellect, undertaking all dangerous missions, impossible missions. We are talking about mission impossible. What is more than mission impossible is what Hanuman did. Whether it was in the search of Sita, whether it was getting the Sanjeevani Parvata couple of times, or whether it is a situation where he had to go and fight with the Asuras. So, he is able to tap the deepest of his potential. How? Only by connecting himself to Rama. He knew Rama in the very first contact that he was Parabrahman. So constantly he was thinking about Rama. So when he saw that he didn't have the capacity, all he had to do is make sure his connection to Rama is strong, and then he could do whatever he do. Whatever mission was in front of him became like child's play. We looked at Hanuman in detail for 3 weeks. If anybody is interested, you can go to Sanatanam Arivom namesake YouTube channel, and you can see the English English YouTube videos, and you could listen to them. So the main focus is Hanuman highlights one very important point, that in Rama Kainkarya we all undergo an evolution, a transformation. Nothing is more evident than in Sundaraganda. When he goes in search of Sita, he goes as a Rama Duta. When Sita is asking, "Who are you?" He says, "I am Rama Duta, messenger from Rama." But after seeing Sita, he is totally humbled and he comes back as Rama Dasa. So when we are going to do our own evolution through Rama Kainkarya, by focusing on our Dharma and Kartavya, we are also going to have an evolution similar to that of Hanuman. Let's look at a couple more examples for the day. The next one is Sugriva. Now Sugriva, when he wanted to see Rama, he was only interested in a very selfish reason. He wanted to dethrone Vali. He doesn't even trust Rama, who came out of the blue. The first thing Rama says, "Hey, you are my brother. I'm going to help you, and let's have a pact in front of Agni." So he goes to test Rama because he doesn't even trust himself. But just like all of us who distract ourselves with a little victory, Sugriva also gets distracted and he forgets Rama and Rama Kainkarya. He is so happy to go back to his own pleasures. So this is a problem for all of us. When we want to align ourselves in the path of Dharma, we may get a few success right away. And that small success, maybe it is some name. Somebody comes and calls you, "Oh, you are like a Swamiji, you are like a Acharya, you are like this and that." Immediately it goes to our head and we become like big in our own mind. And then Vasana pressure takes over from there and misleads us away from our Dharma. So the very thing that brought us to the top is the very thing that can take us away. But luckily for Sugriva, Rama was around to remind in the form of Lakshmana. So the same thing is going to happen for us when we associate continuously in Satsanga, when we continuously study the scriptures. Our buddhi is going to get reminded, "Hey, stay focused on Rama Kainkarya, your Dharma. Don't worry about all these pleasures." So Rama is going to send that Lakshmana to remind us. So same way, once he got the news that Sita is there, he brings the entire army and he also rises up to the task, because in his army were two engineers, Nala and Neela, who recalibrated the entire army, which is a fighting machine, to do building work. So they just built a Setu in just 5 days. So in the path, a lot of changes happen, and he is also inspiring and leading his army from the front by killing a lot of asuras. In fact, everybody wants to do Rama Kainkarya, that when Vali is in his deathbed, when he pulls out the arrow, first he accuses Rama, and then finally he is saying, Rama, you should have come to me first. Everybody wants to contribute towards Rama Kainkarya because they know that will take them to the next path. So you and I are also focused on Rama Kainkarya, not directly doing to Rama, but by doing our Dharma. So we are having a parallel directly in our lives. So let us not forget that. We are not only listening to Ramayana here, we are talking about our own story, the story of our life. So the interesting thing, Sugriva's commitment is complete. It's not partial. There is going to be a lot of distraction if we are going to enter the path of doing our Dharma, doing Rama Kainkarya. But by staying closer to Rama mentally, and also through the messages we receive through satsanga, through our acharyas, and through a lot of these Itihasa Puranas and things like that, we can be on track. That is the message for us. And second thing is, if you look at the commitment, when Sugriva gave the orders, he sent his Sena in all directions, but he gave all of them 1 month time. So when we are on the path of Rama Kainkarya or on the path of doing our Dharma, we must set aggressive standards and also implement them, instead of just saying, no, it is too difficult, because they all constitute our sadhana. The other thing we have to understand is, when we are committed, we may be doing a lot of good things, we may be influencing other people, but we are not doing this for the sake of other people. Who is the person we have to impress? The one we have to rein in and bring into our control is our manas. We have to bring in control the pancha jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. We have to bring in control the buddhi and establish firmly at the feet of Bhagavan or our Dharma. And that is the task we are looking for. That is the leadership we are talking about. Leadership here is not saying that, oh, I can't make a lecture, I can't talk, I don't know all these shastras. That is not what we are talking about. In this path, we have to set standards and we have to raise up with our own example. See, there are two people, both killed their brothers using Rama's help, Sugriva and Vibheshna, right? Both switch sides. But there is a difference between Sugriva and Vibheshna. This was evident when all of them went back. And Hanuman is giving an introduction, all these people are there. This is Rama is giving introduction. This is Sugriva. This is Vibheshna and whatnot. Bharata says, "Oh, that was awesome. You had the chance to serve Rama to Vibheshna." But for Sugriva, he hugs him tight and he starts weeping. Bharata, who was sitting far away, could discern the difference between the number of resources, the level of effort Sugriva had put, and from the perspective of the task what Rama had on hand, that meant a difference of success and failure. So the commitment is more than 100%. You are completely in. Now the other interesting aspect to see here is, we are also like Sugriva only. We may be motivated by Artha or Kama. Can say like, Bhagavan, please give me this, give me that. But even that little contact we get with Bhagavan, immediately we need to redirect that energy, that extra sattva guna we get, in doing our sadhana, in studying more scriptures, in doing some nama sankirtana, serving other Bhagavatas, uplifting Dharma wherever, whenever we can in the society, setting a better example. And that is how we can get our ticket confirmed to moksha. That's the example we are learning from Sugriva today. We are going to see one more character for the want of time, and that is our dear friend Vibheshna. He was on the wrong side. He was committed to Dharma throughout his life. He was committed to Rama Kainkarya even before Rama was at his doorstep, because he was committed to Dharma. How do we know that? The very first contact of Shurpanaka, when she comes and meets Rama, so she asks, imagine this, you are in a forest. Out of the blue, one Rakshasi comes and says, who are you? And Rama, being the definition of Arjava, that means straightforwardness, he said, there was one Raja called Dasharatha, he had no children, then he got, he told whole Ramayana till that time. And says, I am Rama, this is my brother Lakshmana, this is my wife Sita. And he says, how come a wonderful lady like you is in the forest? Now some people immediately say like, oh, Rama is making fun. People don't understand one simple thing. In the eyes of Bhagavan, everything is same. Both the sewer and Ganga is same. So Bhagavan is not going to differentiate between you and me, except that he is looking at our karma and is letting that karma decide what the phala is going to be. He is not sitting and punishing you like in other religions where they say, oh, God is punishing you. No. God is not doing all that. Bhagavan is not sitting and doing all that. So in case of Shurpanaka, she says, oh, I am Shurpanaka. By the way, I have like real powerful brother called Ravana. And equally real brother called Kumbhakarna. And in our family, there is one character called Vibheshna. We call him Dharmatma. He is nothing like us. He is in his own world. He is only talking Dharma only. What kind of character is he? And by the way, I also have local guys, Kara and Dushna. They are also like the other guys, very strong, committed to Adharma, So imagine this is the certificate Vibheshna is getting introduced to a total stranger. So that is why Rama had no problem when Vibheshna came for Saranagati, he didn't have to rely on Hanuman's report. He had a first-hand report from Shurpanaka. Most people tend to forget that incident. So he tried his best to fix the dog's tail, to prevent Ravana from going on fast track of self-destruction. Sounds like a Pakistan story. But we can't do that. Nothing is more powerful than an idea for which the time has come. So what happens? He becomes the Rama's trusted warrior. He is the one who spots the spies like Sukha and Charana. And he is the one who leads Lakshmana to defeat and kill Indrajit. So Vibheshna does a lot of important contributions. He is more, and he is the one who gives the timely counsel. He is the one who goes in searches when Rama, Lakshmana and the entire army was unconscious. He is the one who goes and searches for Sushena, because that Astra had no effect on Vibheshna, and he knew Sushena was the medicine guy, so it didn't have any impact on him too. And Sushena comes up with the idea, hey, go and find Hanuman. So Vibheshna's battle tactics were very, very, very crucial. So now let's come back to our life. We are not in the battlefield with Rama. We were talking about evolving with Rama Kainkarya. How can we bring this to our life? See, just like Vibheshna, who was facing a lot of bad music hanging around Ravana, all of us also, when we want to become a sadhaka, or when we want to turn towards Dharma, when we want to do Rama Kainkarya, when we want to evolve, just like imagine your January weight loss resolution. Good intentions, and immediately the old vasanas come and they try to pull you away. Same thing here. We are also going to be trying to make a resolution that I want to be doing more sadhana, more committed to my dharma, my swadharma. That is, the dharma is the only way I can attain Rama. We do all this. But what we don't understand is, we threw a lot of time bombs in the form of our own karmas, which will come back as our own karma phala. And they are going to create that problem. The only way you can get rid of that problem forever is to sink yourself in the practice of Dharma, to focus more on Rama Kainkarya, to focus more on the sadhana. Otherwise, that initial pushback you get can be mistaken as a dead end. So let us not let our own past, let us not let our vasanas, let us not let our past actions to deter our current actions, current thoughts, current focus, and our current commitment to do Dharma and raise ourselves in doing Rama Kainkarya. We can always overcome our past baggage, is the message we learn from Vibheshna. Vibheshna's baggage was so big. He was the brother, his entire brother and the gang were doing adharma. one after the other, after the other, after the other. He had a choice. Should I be on the side of adharma or dharma? See, the problem for Jujutsu in Mahabharata is not this big. Because he is just a small character. He comes and he goes. But Vibheshna is not like that. And when he comes, unlike Jujutsu who says, hey, justice is on the other side, he just comes this side and fights. But Vibheshna is not like that. Vibheshna is immersed in Dharma, and that Dharma is not letting him to let go of his past. Hey, my brother, let him die. He tries his best. But when you are cornered between your life, that is exactly what is happening in our society right now. We are cornered. So as Vibheshnas, we may have to make a call. Where is my commitment? Is it on the side of Rama or is it on the side of drama? So he had to take his role and help the person to go and decimate his own clan. We are not having this much complication like Vibheshna. So our only question is, who is the Ravana we are facing here? The Ravana we are facing is not the desert cult. The Ravana we are facing is not the Breaking India forces. The Ravana we are facing is not any of those external entities. The Ravana we are talking about and facing is our own laziness, our own indolence, our own tamas, our own vasanas that is pulling us back again and again and again. And that is why the only way we can escape from the clutches of that Ravana is to seek shelter at the feet of Rama. So it is very, very important for us to understand the context. This is not some old Ramayana we are talking. We are talking about our daily lives. We are talking about our own spiritual growth. We are talking about the story of us. But that story of us is overlaid on that of Ramayana, not as a novel measure, because Ramayana, apart from being a history, is also an allegory. And it is supposed to be relevant for every time, every single day. It is not a story of the past. Okay, Rama lived so many thousand years ago. Okay, done. It is a story of our life. So now what we are going to do is we are going to conclude this talk by taking a few practical applications. We already looked at the individual characters and what they mean for us. But in this case, we are going to look at some general overall thoughts. First thought is about leadership. When Rama went into the forest, he had no one but Sita and Lakshmana. And after 13 years, he lost even Sita also. He had to earn every single resource. He had to get the information, little bit information from Jatayu. He had to get the directions from Kabanda and Sabari. He had to get the friendships of Sugriva and Vibheshna and also Sugriva's army. He had to go and build the person before he could build the army. And then he had to go and build the Setu, which was not an easy task, because it was not the obvious choice. So He didn't run back to Bharata, who was the king of Bharatavarsha, and said, Bharata, why don't you send me the army? I want to go and fight this guy. He took my wife. So, as a leader, you and I cannot be telling that, oh, yesterday there was an interesting question, or rather today morning in my time, in the Tamil forum. So they said like, hey, all these different matas are there, Shankara Mata, all these Ramanuja Jiyers and things like that, Madhva Matas are there. They have failed to do the job of protecting Sanatana Dharma. That was the chart sheet. Here, everyone is empowered with this kind of leadership. You and I can't be pointing fingers at some Swamiji. What you and I do matters. So become a leader by connecting yourself to Rama, to Dharma. Second thing, when we do a big task like this, see, in Indian context, we don't say Herculean task. We always say Bhagirath Prayatna. Because what Bhagiratha did dwarfs Hercules many times. So sometimes we have to learn to use the right expressions. We are so enslaved by these colonial thoughts, we want to say, Herculean task, as if we understand all Greek mythology. We are so much enamored by Greek mythology that we have forgotten our own itihasa. Itihasa. Thus it happened. That is history. So the important thing we have to focus is, next quality we need to develop is teamwork, team spirit. See, Rama had to pick the right resources. There was Angada, who was the prince, who was the leader of the southern delegation of the army contingent. But Rama chose Hanuman for the person who is anointed to meet Sita. That is why when the army was assembled and sent in 4 directions, he calls Hanuman and he gives his signature ring, and on top of that he tells a lot of messages for Sita, because Rama identified Hanuman as the resource, and Hanuman never had doubt, because he already knew that he was chosen by Rama, and he knew Rama was Parabrahman in the very first contact. So when we identify right resources and build a right team, I will definitely brag about this gentleman who is sitting on the moderator panel. Pretty much every single time I open the room, Atmaji has been there. Nobody asked him, nobody gave him that role. None of us in the team said like, Atmaji, you should be here. And he takes that role. So we have to, when it comes to Dharma, we are working as a team and we must take that role, different roles, we must work in tandem. It may change, that is fine. Because same Atmaji goes to another room and he conducts Shiva Purana Parayanam, he does Shamla Dandagam moderation, he does so many other things. Our role may evolve, but we have to work as a team for uplifting Dharma. It is very important. See, sometimes when we refer to Sugriva, we already referred. The small distractions can distract us, like how it did Sugriva. It can also lead to confusion, because just like Vibheshna had no trust amongst Vanaras and he had to overcome that huge trust deficit. Look at it like this. One end you are wanting to do Dharma and help your brother. He is kicking you and he is ready to kill you. On the other end, you are looking at Bhagavan and you are trying to surrender, and all the people around Bhagavan are saying, no, this fellow cannot be trusted. What can be worse than that? So we have to work together as a team. Why am I saying that? There are so many trust deficits in the society. We have been introduced to a lot of wrong, erroneous notions like caste. Caste is not part of Indian society. We followed only Varnashrama Dharma. It is only after the independence, and it is only before the when all these Western guys, the Britishers, came and introduced the idea of caste, which our politicians fanned the flames. So the caste is a colonial construct, but unfortunately capitalized only by current post-independent politicians. So we may have a lot of trust deficits like Vibheshna. But what is the focus here? Putting together a common direction, common team, focus on unity, because we are unified by a higher goal, uplifting Sanatana Dharma. And that is the way we can evolve, by being part of doing our Kainkarya for Rama. The next one we already spoke about. We spoke about teamwork, but for doing a teamwork, you need a team, right? So who is going to build the team? There is no big or small. There is no one time or continuous time. Everything is important. Jatayu was there for a small time, but he gave his life, stretching himself way beyond. We already saw that example. But Sugriva was there throughout. So everybody has a role to play. Let's not feed our ego by saying big and small. The very purpose of going in the journey of Rama Kainkarya is to overcome the ego. So let us celebrate small steps of success, every single step, but let us not forget this path of Dharma is Kshurasya Dara, like what Nachiketas was reminded by Yama in Kathopanishad. Let us not forget that this path is long and more arduous than what we can think. Now next question comes, how do we do that? We are not with Rama. How can we do Rama Kainkarya? We already told you. We already saw that Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha. So next week we are going to see that in greater detail. So make sure that you book your calendar. We are going to see this in greater detail because it is Rama Navami. How is Rama seeing this universe? How is Rama seeing the opponents? Last 2 weeks we saw how opponents saw Rama, and we understood that depending on the guna, the lens of guna is going to determine how we perceive Rama. So Shurpanaka saw as an object of lust. Vali could not see because he got confused, till an association to Rama was formed because of the Rama Bana. We can do the same, not with Rama Bana, but with Rama Nama. So we saw that. So how do we do this? Dharma is under attack everywhere. My parents didn't teach me. Your parents didn't teach me. Teach you. So we are all going to be saying, like, we are going to complain. We are going to say all these Mata Acharyas are all waste. They didn't do their job. Okay. You are now dealt a set of cards. We are all dealt a set of cards. So now how do we play our cards? That is going to determine the game. Instead of saying, no, 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 this person got 2 kings, this person got 2 aces, I got only 1 joker. So stop being the joker and make the joker count. So how do we do that? Again, we looked at the answer from Ramayana is to raise our own standards. By raising our standards, we start impacting ourselves first. Because we are impacting ourselves, we are going to impact others in a positive way. So that way, you and I will start contributing to the ecosystem of Dharma. That dharmic ecosystem has been systematically abused and broken by the British. There is clear documented evidence, undisputable, and nothing can be done about it because it is a thing of the past. So what can you and I do? First, if you want, let's say if you want to use your phone, or if you want to use your Tesla car, what do? You have to charge it. So how do you charge yourself? By doing sadhana, by studying scriptures, by having continuous satsanga, at the same time minimizing dussanga. You can't have one without the other. They are two facets of the same thing. Many times we say like, oh, I am having satsanga, and then we go to another room and we start singing cinema songs or talking some junk or foul mouthing. That's not going to help. Look at opportunities to serve Bhagavatas. Look at opportunities to donate for not charity. Forget about feeding people and things like that. Focus your energy on doing the right things. See if you can focus your money towards uplifting Vedas. Focus on Veda Patashalas. Focus on Goshalas. Focus on how we can fight and bring the temples out of the clutches of the government. And those are the causes by which we can directly impact the Dharma ecosystem and strengthen it. And most importantly, you learn to stand on the side of Dharma. Whenever, wherever adharma threatens it, don't be intimidated, be like Jatayu. Can we all raise the bar and at least align ourselves to be like Jatayu, though we may not match him? Can we develop a backbone? So what is our duty? Our duty is to understand we are not this body. So what are we? We are a divine being. We are a Jivatma that has a body. We are not a body that has an Atma. So when a person dies, oh, this person's Atma has left. No. We are always the Atma, which was associated with the body and which will leave the body. So once we understand that, that is the foundational step for us to realize Paramatma. Otherwise, we will not understand Bhagavan or what is happening, what is Dharma. And that comes by a progressive cleansing of our gunas. It's important for us to understand that we have to take care of our body, our mind, our intellect. So we normally tend to take care of our body lot more because all our understanding is in the materialistic plane, right? But nowadays even that is not true. Go and look at the people who eat junk food all around us. Go and look at the people's average understanding of the food they put in their mouth. It's abysmal. Some people don't even know that the food comes from plants. They don't even know if it is a plant or a tree or it's made in the factory. So make sure that we take focus on understanding and taking care of our body. But at the same time, we tend to neglect the manas and the buddhi. Let us not do that. Because only through that proper functioning of manas and buddhi, we can understand the presence and existence of Atma. And then only we can say like, yeah, I understand Atma is only permanent. Then only you can see what is Atma. Then only you can use that to move along the path of doing more Rama Kainkarya. So what can we do? It's kind of ironical, right? When the title we said we want to focus on Rama and Ramayana. But the funny thing is we have come 360 degrees back to the same point and we are saying no, it is not about Rama, it is more about me. And the only thing here is we have to understand who is this me. And like Bhagavan Ramana Maharishi said, question starts, who am I? This dharmic uplifting, cleansing of our gunas will ensure the fast track evolution. See, Rama is Bhagavan. He could have just destroyed, who is that super hero character, Thanos, right? He just snaps the finger and the entire universe disappears, right? Same way, Rama could have just had a sankalpa and destroyed Ravana. He need not have taken an avatara. But if you really look at all the avatars, Bhagavan comes down to our level, especially the human Manusya avatars, Rama and Krishna. They come down to our level and set the right example. So, Rama has taken away all the excuses what we can come up with today in following the path of Dharma. Was it easy for Rama to follow the path of Dharma just because he was Bhagavan? No. Imagine yourself being the next crown prince and then previous day, your father calls and says, tomorrow morning you are king. Morning 4 o'clock you go. He says, no more king and all those things, you get lost. 14 years, don't come back. Even father is not telling a word. Stepmother is telling. And then he goes back to the room and says bye to all of them. And then his wife and his brother, younger brother says, no, we will come. So path of it is not easy. Then can you imagine losing your love of your life in the middle of the forest? Not knowing which direction, whether she is alive or dead. No news. So Rama takes away all the excuses what we will have in following the path of Dharma. So what is the takeaway for us? Don't turn your back on Dharma. Dharma is already under lot of stress. We know that, you know that. Don't turn your back on Dharma. Develop some backbone. Come to the rescue of Dharma. Try to uplift it by following whatever Dharma you understand. By associating yourself more with the right Shastras, Satsanga. You have to understand, I have to understand that in the path of Rama Kainkarya, in the path of practicing Dharma, in the path of protecting Dharma, there is no place for any coward. Every person who is fighting the vices within, fighting the laziness, fighting the vasanas within, is a warrior. Is a warrior. Just like all the Vanaras that were killed on the side of Rama, all the Vanaras that were wounded badly by the Asuras were all revived because Rama was given the boon by Indra when he asked, like, what kind of boon can I give you because you helped us? He said, revive all these people. The same way, in the path of spiritual progress, the inner vasanas we fight, our struggle to follow the path of Dharma is going to be ultimately rewarding us by a fast track progress. It may look for a long time that you are going back and forth, 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward. That's how it looks. Then slowly it will be 2 steps forward and 2 steps backward. Slowly it will be 2 steps forward and then 1 step backward. That is how we are still making progress, but we are not moved up. We are still going in reverse. And then we make 2 steps forward and then no step backward. And then we make 4 steps forward. And that's how it works. So don't give up just because you went 2 steps forward and went back 3 steps. Because in the path of following Dharma, you and I will have that resistance. And that fight is a good fight. That fight is backed by Bhagavan as long as we put the action. If we don't put the action, Bhagavan is going to say, okay, let Vasanas take it over. But when we are putting the fight, Bhagavan is going to step in and help us support. So let me remind all of us that protecting Dharma, Dharma Rakshana is the highest contribution you and I can make. And by doing so, our path is firmly aligned towards Rama. Our path is definitely in the column that counts as Rama Kainkarya. May we continue to focus on Rama. Let him continue to inspire us. May our hearts be filled with bhakti and jnana, that we always understand that there is no difference between Dharma and Rama. With these words, let me conclude today's talk, that let our mind and attention and our actions revolve around Rama Kainkarya. Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna.